sun is shining like a red rubber ball.
Hi everybody. Today I'm going to continue reading about Flat Stanley. Yesterday I read chapters 1 and 2, and today we're going to read chapter 3. And as you may remember, Flat Stanley got flattened by a bulletin board that fell on him, and he's had a lot of adventures. He was able to crawl into a grate and retrieve his mother's ring. He was able to be mailed in an envelope and go visit his friend in California. So today the chapter is called Stanley the Kite. Wow. Mr. Lambchop had always liked to take the boys out with him on Sunday afternoons to a museum or roller skating in the park. But it was difficult when they were crossing streets or moving about in crowds. Stanley and Arthur would often be jostled from his side, and Mr. Lambchop worried about speeding taxis or that hurrying people might accidentally knock them down. It was easier after Stanley got flat. Mr. Lambchop discovered that he could roll Stanley up without hurting him at all. He would tie a piece of string around Stanley to keep him from unrolling and make a little loop in the string for himself. It was as simple as carrying a parcel, and he could hold on to Arthur with the other hand. Stanley did not mind being carried because he had never much liked to walk. Arthur didn't like to walk either, but he had to, and it made him mad. So you can see that's how his daddy carried him. You see that? Yeah, there you go. One Sunday afternoon in the street, they met Ralph Jones, an old college friend of Mr. Lambchop's. "Well, George, I see you have brought some wallpaper," Mr. Jones said. "Going to decorate your house, I suppose?" "Wallpaper?" said Mr. Lambchop. "Oh, no, this is my son Stanley." He undid the string and Stanley unrolled. "How do you do?" Stanley said. "Nice to meet you, young feller," the man said. "George, that boy is flat." "Smart, too," said Mr. Lambchop. "Stanley is third from the top in his class at school." "Phooey," said Arthur. "This is my younger son, Arthur," Mr. Lambchop said. And there they are meeting his dad's friend. And he could see that Stanley was Flat Stanley for sure. "I am going to make my younger son, Arthur, apologize for his rudeness." Arthur could only blush and apologize. Mr. Lambchop rolled Stanley up again, and they set out for home. It rained quite hard while they were on the way. Stanley, of course, hardly got wet at all, just around the edges. But Arthur, look at Arthur. Arthur got soaked, and he doesn't look too happy either. Late that night, Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop heard a noise out in the living room. They found Arthur lying on the floor near the bookcase. He had piled a great many volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica on top of himself. "Put some more on me," Arthur said when he saw them. "Don't just stand there, help me." Now, why do you think he put all of these encyclopedias on himself? Oh, do you know why? Yep, I think he was a little jealous of Flat Stanley, and I think he wanted to become Flat Arthur. Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop sent him back to bed, but the next morning they spoke to Stanley. "Arthur can't help being jealous," they said. "Be nice to him. You're his big brother after all." The next Sunday, Stanley and Arthur went to the park by themselves. The day was sunny but windy too, and many older boys were flying beautiful enormous kites with long tails made in all the colors of the rainbow. Arthur sighed. "Someday," he said, "someday I'll have a big kite and I will win a kite flying contest and be famous like everyone else. Nobody knows who I am these days." Stanley remembered what his parents had said. He went to a boy whose kite was broken and borrowed a large spool of string. "You can fly me, Arthur," he said. "Come on." He attached the string to himself and gave Arthur the spool to hold. He ran lightly across the grass, sideways to get up speed, and then he turned to meet the breeze. Up, 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 up went Stanley, being a kite. He knew just how to manage on the gusts of wind. He faced full into the wind if he wanted to rise, and he let it take him from behind when he wanted speed. He had only to turn his thin edge to the wind, carefully, a little at a time, so that it did not hold him. Now look at Arthur flying Stanley. Ooh, doesn't that look like fun? And Stanley didn't even seem afraid. Arthur let out all the string, and Stanley soared high above the trees, a beautiful sight in his red shirt and blue trousers against the pale blue sky. Everyone in the park stood still to watch. Stanley swooped right and then left in long matched swoops. He held his arms by his side and zoomed at the ground like a rocket and curved up again toward the sun. He side-slipped and circled, and he made figure eights and crosses and a star. Nobody has ever flown the way Stanley Lambchop flew that day. Probably no one ever will again. After a while, of course, people grew tired of watching, and Arthur got tired of running about with the empty spool. Stanley went right on, though, showing off. 3 boys came up to Arthur and invited him to join them for a hot dog and some soda pop. Arthur left the spool wedged in the fork of a tree. He did not notice while he was eating the hot dog that the wind was blowing the string. There's Arthur enjoying his hot dog. Wow, he had worked up an appetite. Anyway, the string got tangled in the tree. The string got shorter and shorter, but Stanley did not realize how low he was until leaves brushed his feet, and then it was too late. He got stuck in the branches. 15 minutes passed before Arthur and the other boys heard his cries, and they climbed up to set him free. Oh, wow, look at Stanley. He's really stuck. Stanley would not speak to his brother that evening, and at bedtime, even though Arthur had apologized, he was still cross. Alone with Mr. Lambchop in the living room, Mrs. Lambchop sighed and shook her head. "You're at the office all day having fun. You don't realize what I go through with the boys. They're very difficult." "Oh, kids are like that," Mr. Lambchop said. "Phases. Be patient, dear." And we're going to stop there, and tomorrow we'll read chapter 4. So Stanley has a lot of adventures, doesn't he? Another book I'm going to read is called A Ball for Daisy. Look at that. Have you ever had a dog? I only had a dog once in my life. His name was Chips when I was little, but we weren't able to keep him because we lived in an apartment. But this is A Ball for Daisy. And then I've never been able to have any more dogs because I'm allergic to them. But I have some grand dogs, and so let's look at this book, and I want to tell you something about this book. Have you ever read a book that doesn't have words? This book doesn't have words, so let's see if we can figure it out. This is called A Ball for Daisy. Oh, look at that. What did Daisy get? A big red ball. Oh, look at the fun that Daisy's having with that ball. Just hitting it, bouncing it with her nose and jumping with it, and got onto the couch, just having so much fun. Look what happened. Daisy did what? Well, dogs don't snore like that, but Daisy fell asleep. She wore herself out playing ball. Have you ever got really tired when you played ball? Oh, look at the leash there. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to go for a walk. And her owner has the ball. Now, look what's going to happen. Oh no, the ball got away. They're running to get it. Daisy brings the ball back. Good dog, Daisy. Uh-oh, what happened? Sometimes kids do that too. The ball went over the fence. Look at what a nice owner. They went and retrieved the ball. Woof, woof, woof. What's coming? Oh no, another dog who's going to be faster. Went to get Daisy's nice ball. Pop! What happened? Oh no. Daisy's owner's running, and they go over and look at Daisy's ball is all ruined. Oh, poor Daisy. Doesn't Daisy look sad? Doesn't have her ball anymore. Time to go home, Daisy. Oh, Daisy just looks so sad. Her owner put her leash on her, but I don't think she really wants to leave her ball, does she? She just look at poor Daisy. Have you ever felt that way when something broke? Her owner had to put the leash on to make her leave. And Daisy goes home, and what does she do? Just lays down on the couch, turns her back, even though her owner comes and pets her on the head. Oh, Daisy is so heartbroken. They go out. The next day, they go for a walk. Who do they meet? Oh, look at that. That's the dog that popped the ball. And that dog's owner. And what do they have in their hands? A new ball, a blue ball. Oh, wow. Let's see what happens. Grandma can't get the page to open. Look at that. Oh, Daisy's going to be so happy again. Look at that happy look. She wants to just chase that ball. Oh, take it and go away. And this owner put the leash on her dog. Is taking the dog away. And Daisy gets to leave with the new ball. And look at Daisy there. Oh, how do you think Daisy feels? So happy. She got a new ball. That's really pretty special, isn't it? And I'm just going to sing one more letter today. I think we're up to letter N, capital N, lowercase n. And this is a song about Nathaniel. Nathaniel had a naughty little nanny goat who never ate a single oat, just nibbled on his overcoat. Nathaniel had a naughty little nanny goat. Her name was Nanabelle. Did you hear some N words? Right, Nathaniel, naughty, nanny, nibbled. Yes, Nanabelle. Look at that little goat. And let's do the letter O before we say goodbye today. Capital O, lowercase o. An octopus swam in the ocean, swam over the waves in the sea. It raised its arms out of the water and waved 8 times to me. Oh me, oh my, there it goes swimming by. Oh me, oh my, that octopus just waved bye, bye. And I'm going to say goodbye too. I love you. Bye.
Amen.